Microsoft Azure is one of the biggest players in cloud technologies, and AZ-900 is one fundamental exam that opens the doorway for you to enter the exciting world of Microsoft Azure. Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. 20 exam-like questions on AZ-900 coming up in this part 10, and all the questions are fully updated for AZ-900 series in 2023. Each question is well supported by Microsoft documentation, so you can validate the answers and do some self-study. And not only that, there will be loads of exam tips and a free PDF file containing all the questions with the answers. And please do not miss to watch the previous parts of this series. 165 latest questions fully synced with Microsoft syllabus already covered, a must watch. All the links shared in the description box. So let's gear up and prepare for AZ-900 exam. So let's begin part 10 with different kind of questions. These questions are drag and drop. So let's begin with question number 166. It says that to answer, drag the appropriate benefit from the columns on the left to its description on the right. Each benefit may be used once, more than once, or not at all. So here you can see that we are given with some of the Azure services on the left hand side, and then we are given with a small one-liner description on the right hand side. So we have to match these Azure services with these descriptions. So let's read the first description. It says an if-then statement of assignments and access control. So friends, in case of if-then statement, what comes to your mind? Basically, whenever we have if-then statement, what we are actually saying is, if something happens, if A condition is met, then you have to take some set of actions. But in case the condition B is met, then you have to take some another set of actions. So basically, it's a conditional access, and that's why this statement matches with conditional access. Moving on, the second statement says responsible for authentication. And always remember, my friends, whenever it's authentication, always go for Azure AD. The third statement says responsible for authorization, and this of course is RBAC. Now, how many of you know the full form of RBAC? Let me know in the comment section. And before moving ahead, friends, in case you want a free PDF file containing all the 20 questions with answers that we are discussing in this video, you have to tell me the correct answers for the question number 169, 173 and 183. And friends, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you are eligible for this PDF file. And send your answers at our email ID connectus@thetechblackboard.com. Also remember, my friends, that questions and answers will surely make you better prepared for the exam, but the concepts will make you a better Azure professional. And that's why we have entire playlist on Azure fundamentals explaining each Azure concept in detail. This playlist is completely synced with the latest Microsoft syllabus on AZ-900, and you can see thumbnails of some of the videos from this playlist on your screen. New videos are added very frequently. Do check out this playlist. The link is shared in the description box and also appearing in the I button on the top right corner. Now let's move on to the next question. Question number 167 says that your company intends to subscribe to an Azure support plan. The support plan must allow for new support requests to be opened. Which of the following are support plan that allows this? And you have to answer by dragging the correct option from this list to this answer area. And what are the options given? We have basic support plan, we have developer, we have standard support plan, we also have professional direct, and we also have premier support plan. And what are the options given? Well, we have basic support plan, developer, standard, professional direct, and premier. Now let's check out what are the correct support plans that allow you to open new support requests. The first support plan is basic, the second one is developer, then we have standard, and last one is professional direct. And please note, my friends, that premier support plan, this does not exist anymore. Rest in all the other plans, you can open a new support request. And you can read all about the support plans in this Microsoft documentation. Here you can see that we have only 4 options given here. We have basic, developer, standard, and professional direct. And as I mentioned, premier support plan does not exist anymore. Now let's move on to the next question. Question number 168. This one again is a drag and drop kind of question. Again, you are given with some of the Azure services, and these services are to be matched with these one-liner definitions. So let's first check out what are the Azure services given in the question. We have dynamic scalability, then we have low latency, The third one is fault tolerance, and the last one is disaster recovery. And now let's check out the first definition. It says a cloud service that remains available after a failure occurs. And this one most definitely is fault tolerance. The second definition says a cloud service that can be recovered after a failure occurs. And here, my friends, please note the minute difference between these two definitions. The first one says remains available. However, the second one says that can be recovered. So please understand there is a difference between remaining available and being recoverable. And that's why the correct matching service for the second definition is disaster recovery. Moving on with the third one, it says a cloud service that can be accessed quickly from the internet. And this one most definitely is low latency. And now the fourth definition says a cloud service that performs quickly when demand increases. And this one is dynamic scalability. Now friends, all these four services, all these are very important Azure services, and one-liners are not enough. And that's why let me give you more details on each of this, because you will get loads of questions around these services. So first, let's understand what is dynamic scalability. So dynamic scalability is the ability for compute resources to be added to service when the service is under heavy load. For example, in a virtual machine skill set, additional instances of virtual machines are added when existing virtual machines are under heavy load. Now coming to the low latency, well, latency is the time of a service to respond to the request. For example, the time it takes for a web page to be returned from a web server. Low latency means low response time, which means a quicker response. And now we have fault tolerance. Well, fault tolerance is the ability of a service to remain available after a failure of one of the components of the service. For example, a service running on multiple servers that can withstand the failure of one server. And lastly, we have disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is the recovery of a service after a failure. For example, restoring a virtual machine from backup after virtual machine failure. Friends, before you jump to the next question, I seriously recommend you to pause this video now and read this definition one more time. Understand them well and try to connect these definitions with the one-liners given in the previous question. Now let's move on to the question number 169. It says that your billing is based on your usage of Azure resources and is invoiced. Fill in the blanks. The options given are annually, monthly or daily. So simply putting, the question is just asking you what is the billing cycle in Azure Cloud. And in case you have already worked on Azure, you know the correct answer is option B, monthly. And now let's move on to the question number 170. It says a company is planning on setting up a solution in Microsoft Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement, and the requirement is give the ability to host a big data analysis services for machine learning. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? Your options are Azure Databricks, Azure Logic Apps, Azure App Services, or Azure Application Insights. And the correct answer for this question is option A, Azure Databricks. And in case you are wondering what is Azure Databricks, well, Azure Databricks Lakehouse platform provides a unified set of tools for building, deploying, sharing and maintaining enterprise-grade data solution at scale. Azure Databricks integrates with cloud storage and security in your cloud account and manages and deploys cloud infrastructure on your behalf. And just so you know, Azure Databricks is an Apache Spark based analytics platform optimized for Microsoft Azure Cloud Services. A great service to explore in case you want. The link is right there in the description box. Now let's move on to the question number 171. The question says a company is planning on setting up a solution in Microsoft Azure. The solution would have the following key requirement, and the requirement is give the ability to detect and diagnose anomalies in web apps. Which of the following would be best suited for this requirement? And your options are Azure Databricks, Azure Logic Apps, Azure App Service, or Azure Application Insights. And this time the correct answer is option D, Azure Application Insights. So Azure Application Insights is a feature of Azure Monitor. It is an extendable application performance management APM service for web developers on multiple platforms. And you can use it to monitor your live web application. It will automatically detect performance anomalies. It includes powerful analytics tool to help you diagnose issues and to understand what users actually do with your application. And further, it helps you continuously improve performance and usability. And this one, as you can see, my friends, it works on variety of platform including .NET, Node.js, Java, hosted on premises, hybrid, or any public cloud. So that's why Azure Application Insights is a correct service to detect and diagnose anomalies in web apps. Now let's move on to the question number 172. It says a company is planning on hosting a solution on Microsoft Azure. The solution would have following key requirement. The requirement is allow the hosting of web-based application. Your options are Azure Databricks, Azure Logic Apps, Azure App Service, and the last option is Azure Application Insights. And I think this is an easier question. In case you have already guessed, the correct answer is option C, Azure App Service. Now let's move on to the question number 173. It says a company wants to host an application on a set of virtual machines. The application must be made available 99.99% of time. In order to comply with the SLA requirement, what is the minimum number of virtual machines required to ensure 99.99% uptime to host the application? And your options are 1, 2, 3, or as much as possible. In simple words, my friends, the question is just asking you, how many virtual machines should you host in order to maintain 99.99% of SLA? And the correct answer is 2. There should be at least 2 virtual machines to maintain 99.99% of SLA. Now let's move on to the question number 174. It says a company is planning on hosting solutions with Microsoft Azure Cloud. They need to implement MFA for identities hosted in Microsoft Azure. The only 2 valid ways of authentication for MFA as listed below. The first one is picture identification and the second one is passport number. Is the above true or false? I hope, my friends, you understand MFA stands for multi-factor authentication. And as far as the answer goes, this is a false statement. Now let's understand how does a multi-factor authentication or MFA works here in the documentation. So here you can see that multi-factor authentication is a process in which the users are prompted during sign-in process for an additional form of identification such as a code on their cell phone or a fingerprint scan. And I'm sure most of you are dealing with this. Even a pizza delivery these days will send you an SMS code, and only once you verify that code, you will be delivered that pizza. Anyways, jokes apart, it also says that if you only use a password to authenticate a user, it leaves an insecure vector for attack. And further, it says that Azure AD multi-factor authentication works by requiring 2 or more of the following authentication method. The first one is something you know, typically a password. And the second one is something you have, such as a trusted device that's not easily duplicated like a phone or a hardware key. The third one says something you are, biometrics like fingerprints or a face scan. So friends, as we saw in the Microsoft documentation, picture identification and passport number are not valid multi-factor authentication, and that's why we have chosen false for this question. Now let's move on to the question number 175. It says a company plans on purchasing Microsoft Azure support plan. Below is the key requirement for the support plan. Provide an option to contact Microsoft support engineers by phone or email ID during business hours. A recommendation is made to purchase the basic support plan. Would this recommendation fulfill this requirement? And this one, my friends, is a false statement. And this is because being able to contact Microsoft support engineers by phone or email during the business hours is only available in developer, standard, and professional direct support plans. That's why basic support plan will not fulfill this requirement. And now let's move on to the question number 176. In this question, we are given with some statements and we have to validate whether these statements are correct or incorrect. Let's read the first one. It says, to implement a hybrid cloud model, a company must have an internal network. Yes or no? And this one, my friends, is an incorrect statement. And the reason being, it's not true that a company must always migrate from an internal network to implement a hybrid cloud. You can also start with a public cloud and then combine that with an on-premise infrastructure to implement a hybrid cloud. Moving on to the next statement. The statement says that a company can extend the computing resources of its internal network by using hybrid cloud. Yes or no? And this one, my friends, is a true statement. Of course, a company can extend its computing resources of its internal network by using hybrid cloud, and this is exactly what hybrid cloud is meant for. Basically, you keep using your private network or private resources and also extend whenever the need arises to the hybrid cloud or public cloud. So combination of these private resources and public resources makes it a hybrid cloud. And now let's move on to the last statement. It says in a public cloud model, only guest users at your company can access resources in the cloud. Yes or no? And this one, my friends, is an incorrect statement. And why so? Because it's not true that only guest users can access cloud resources. You can give access to the resources to anyone who has an account in Azure Active Directory. Now let's move on to the question number 177. It says when you are implementing software as a service or SaaS solution, you are responsible for. Your options are configuring high availability, defining scalability rules. The third one is installing SaaS solution, and the last one is configuring SaaS solution. And the correct answer is option D, configuring the SaaS solution. And this is simply because everything else is managed by cloud providers such as Microsoft Azure. Now let's move on to the question number 178. It says that you plan to migrate a web application to Azure. The web application is accessed by external users. You need to recommend a cloud deployment solution to minimize the amount of administrative effort used to manage the web application. What should you include in your recommendation? Your options are software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and the last one is database as a service. And the correct answer for this one is option B, platform as a service. Moving on to the question number 179, it says that you plan to migrate several servers from on-premises network to Azure. What is an advantage of using public cloud service for the servers over on-premises network? The options given are the public cloud is owned by public, not a private corporations. The second option is the public cloud is a crowdsourcing solution that provides corporations with the ability to enhance the cloud. The third option is all cloud resources can be freely accessed by every member of the public cloud. The fourth one is the public cloud is shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. And the correct answer for this question is option D. And friends, I'm pretty sure that you know that public cloud is not owned by public. In case of Microsoft Azure, as an example, this is owned by Microsoft Corporation. Now let's move on to the question number 180. It says that you have 1,000 virtual machines hosted on Hyper-V host in a data center. You plan to migrate all the virtual machines to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. You need to identify which expenditure model to use for the planned Azure solution. The options given are operational, elastic, capital, or scalable. And the correct answer is option A, operational. And here comes question number 181. It says Azure Cosmos DB is an example of Dash offering. Your options are platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, serverless, and the last option is software as a service. And the correct answer is that Azure Cosmos DB is an example of platform as a service. Moving on with the question number 182, it says a Microsoft SQL Server database that is hosted in the cloud and has software updates managed by Azure is an example of Dash. Your options are disaster recovery as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and the last one is software as a service. And the correct answer is option C, platform as a service. And friends, please be very careful when you read these kind of questions. Let's say in your exam, instead of Microsoft SQL database that is hosted in cloud, instead of this option, the question says Microsoft SQL Server hosted on a virtual machine. In that case, the correct answer would be infrastructure as a service, because always remember, whenever there is virtual machine in the question, always go for infrastructure as a service. And here comes question number 183. It says that your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. The company's migration plan states that only platform as a service solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy an Azure environment that meets the company's migration plan. What should you create? Your options are Azure Virtual Machines, Azure SQL Database, and Azure Storage Account. The second option is an Azure App Service and Azure Virtual Machines that have Microsoft SQL installed. I just mentioned this. The third option is an Azure App Service and Azure SQL Database. And the fourth option is an Azure Storage Account and Web Server in Azure Virtual Machines. And the correct answer for this question is option C, an Azure App Service and Azure SQL Database. And this is because in all the other options you are given with virtual machines. I just mentioned virtual machines are infrastructure as a service. However, in this question, the ask is platform as a service. And here comes question number 184. It says that you are required to deploy an artificial intelligence solution in Azure. You want to make sure that you are able to build, test and deploy predictive analytics for the solution. What is the solution given? Solution says that you should make use of Azure Cosmos DB. Does this meet the goal? True or false? And of course, this one is a false statement. And this is because Azure Cosmos DB has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. And here comes question number 185, which is a variation of the last question 184. The question is exactly the same in this as well. But the solution given is that you should make use of Azure Machine Learning Studio. Does this meet the goal? True or false? And of course, this is a true statement. Azure Machine Learning Studio is the service that you should use when you want to implement artificial intelligence based solutions. So that was all for today. If you felt this video was worth your time and you learned some new concepts, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel and press the bell icon and select all to ensure that you don't miss any future video. And please, my friends, do share our videos to all your loved ones who are also learning Microsoft Azure. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning and thanks for watching.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning and thanks for watching.